Welcome to Anglatinas. I'm Rosie.
And I'm Issy, and we're best friends from the UK.
We've spent these last few years living and travelling in Latin America, being immersed in new cultures, falling in and out of love, and learning to balance the old with the new.
Join us on this journey as we explore life living between continents, living the dream, the highs, the lows, and everything in between.
We are
Anglatinas. We hope you enjoy the ride.
Hey y'all.
How's it going? Nice to meet
I'm
you.
fine. Nice to meet you, Holly. How are you?
I'm good. I was just telling Izzy I just got back from a little bike ride to the beach.
Where do you
Boyfriend just
live?
doesn't want. Belmar, New Jersey currently. So like 2 hours south via train of New York City. But it's
Very nice.
yeah, it's close to the city and it's kind of like the same like New York, as I'm learning, like New York personalities,
Oh, really?
but a bit more mellow. Yeah. It's
Is
funny
it like,
because I'm like very like Midwesterner and bubbly, and some of them have been like just straightforward and like just cut it out kind of thing.
Where are you from?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
Ohio?
So where is that?
It's close to
Michigan.
We share a lake with Canada. So think really north, but also we're considered the Midwest. Ohio,
Right.
I don't know if you've heard any like stereotypes about Ohio, but
Not at all.
they're interesting. But we're also known to be really, really nice. It's just like
Yeah.
within the states, Ohio sometimes just gets made fun of. But normally I
for?
live in Columbus, Ohio, where I went to university.
What do people make fun of
What do
Ohioans
people
for?
Well, even growing up, like I lived in a suburb outside of the city of Cleveland, and people would make fun of like us living in a farmland, which there's a lot of farm area, but that wasn't the situation. So definitely a small town feel, like where specifically my town. But Cleveland is known for, I would say, like LeBron James. Like whenever I taught English, I'd be like
Oh,
LeBron. Yeah. Yeah,
I love Americans. I literally
you
love
do?
Americans.
It was a first for Holly to hear someone say that. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, right.
To hear a British
No.
person say that.
No,
Love
that's
them.
like, it is music to my ears because you know what's funny? For one of my jobs, so I did English teaching, starting
Mhm,
off in Colombia where I met Izzy,
mhm,
Santa Marta, and then program funding got cut, came home and was like, honestly, I wanted to stay there longer, but my
mm.
sister was working for this university in Italy, and I can like go into that too, but I eventually taught English for them for a year to live with my sister and her family. And then COVID kind of hit pause on English teaching, came back, and that same institute asked me to recruit students to study abroad in Italy. So, like going to different universities in the States to try and convince them to go to Italy, which isn't hard because this school is like right on the coast, and it's basically just like show them pictures. My one colleague, Gabriella, who is half Italian, half British, her mom's British, but she grew up in Sorrento, Italy. She and I met for the first time at this conference, and I just encountered the same thing because it was just her and I the whole time and got to know one another. And it's just funny, like even having time with, British friends, still was like catching myself with certain, like the Lori trauma, like the different lingo. We were ordering some appetizers and she was like, "Oh, do you have any chips?" Like asking the waitress. And she was like, "No, we don't have any chips." I was like, "Oh, but wait, do you have any like fries?" And And I was like, Gabriella, is that what did you want chips or crisps or
Let's just take a minute actually to introduce everybody. So
Okay.
you've gone into it already, Paul, but Holly is
Yeah.
my friend. So Holly meet Rose, Rosie meet
Yeah.
Holly.
Hi, Holly.
And Holly and I met in Colombia where we were teaching English, and we met through our mutual friend Kayla, who is no longer with us, but me and Holly continue our friendship today in honor of her. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm saying that because I think my first proper contact with like having contact with American people was really in Colombia, like first with Kayla and then with you and the other people who are there teaching. I think were mainly American, really, weren't they?
And there was a lot.
Because Harley and Kayla, a friend, are from a similar region, which is like this region that's like almost bordering Canada, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've talked about this before because like I really, really enjoy, I don't know how you feel, Rose. Obviously, don't say it to her face if you didn't, but I just really enjoy Holly's accent. And I just,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Rose, can you
I think it's
confirm
nice.
that? Is it just not the best hearing her
Yeah,
speak?
yeah. It's
So
really, really
I'm
anyway,
nice.
so honored.
those are
Especially like
really
having traveled and knowing how Americans can come off very annoying or loud or I sound
Have
my
you met some
accent's
resistance then,
nice.
Holly? Or have you had some kind of issues traveling around, or have you ever experienced people that have been like, "Oh, you're American," or not?
Definitely. Like first getting especially with politics,
Uh,
I used to joke around and say like I was Canadian instead of like American just because of traveling with, you know, with the election and things like that in 20 what was that? Yeah, like 2016. Um but that always like I'll never fully understand the current politics, let alone like, the history. Like everyone has a different perspective, but I've definitely been met with a lot of like confrontation on like, you should know everything about what's going on. When a
yeah.
lot of times I travel to try and like get away from it. But I mean, your typical like, oh, you're this like blonde, you know, white American girl that's just, what are you doing, especially traveling alone in Colombia or anywhere? So things like that. But I think for the most part, if I feel people like treating me with that um, kind of energy, I kind
Mm,
of like steer away from it.
yeah.
Um,
I feel like you're very like overly apologetic for being American, like which obviously I get, but I mean, it's not your
mhm.
fault. You don't have to take on the weight of a nation,
No,
babes. The US is so big, like Brazil. I can relate to that now because I understand literally how every state is like a different country. But do you want to explain to Rose like why
it's gonna be better.
you're in New Jersey at the moment?
Sure, yeah. I just moved to a room that's like closer. So actually, I'm at this inn, this like hotel, that it's like a small boutique hotel that my partner um runs for high season. So for the 5 months of summer, he basically manages the whole place. And being like, a traveler myself, and I was in Columbus, Ohio, so like the middle of the state, where I have, a shared apartment with my roommate, and everything. But he was like, yeah, why not like come join me? And you can just, I had like a restaurant job in Columbus and I'm a painter. So it's pretty easy for me to kind of just pick up and move. So I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity for me to experience a different part of the States. But I will say, like, him saying it was like a walk from the beach, that it was an easy yeah.
So you're in Jersey. Isn't there that show that's like Geordie Shore, which is Jersey Shore? Does it not have like a reputation for being like a party?
Yeah, and that's what I had the reputation of too. And I was
Uh,
like, you have this reputation of Jersey being like, well, I don't know, you think of the show The Sopranos and like the mafia
oh,
and
really?
yeah, I mean, kind of that, and then also Jersey Shore, where you have the gym tanning laundry. Um, it's just so funny how like all of these little cultures exist and you just don't know about it until like
Mm.
even if I were to visit here, I don't think I would learn this stuff, you know?
Yeah, that's so true. And we've talked about this in other episodes as well, like how when you travel somewhere, like obviously it's really enriching and it's great that you get to experience other cultures, but it's like impossible for you to actually really like understand fully when you just travel. Like when you live somewhere new, you really get a deeper understanding of like the little nuances and details of like each place.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah, that's
so
often how I like to travel too.
tell us about like when you went, was Colombia your first trip abroad or like first long-term travel? Or tell us a bit about like why you decided to do that and how that was for you.
Well, that wasn't my first trip, but I will say I wanted to go to Colombia since high school because my Spanish teacher would every Friday have us listen to music and dance, and she would always play Shakira. And I
Mhm.
love dancing. And that is truly, I started learning about Shakira. And I was always like, the more I discovered about Colombia, I was like, I just feel something about this place that I need to go. And it was kind of always in the back of my head. I wanted to do the Peace Corps during college. And so I was, or during university. And I didn't, I did it right the first time I said university. And then
He's so
I was
cute.
like,
I actually can't get over how
You know?
cute she is.
I
We
tried to
have to
train
make this
myself in
meetup
British.
happen, by the way.
What's
Rose,
that?
let's go to New York. We need to make this
Yeah.
In
this
real life,
meetup. Yeah, of
IRL.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah. You
defo.
really should. I mean, yeah, it's funny because I recently was in Brazil, but when Izzy and I were like, we have to see each other, at when Kayla passed, and it was either her come to Ohio or me come to her, and I was like, I think I'm gonna come to you.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
but
so that was
one day I'll get there.
one day. Yeah. Um, so that's what inspired Colombia and like eventually made it there. And it's so funny because of course like right before as I was getting ready to go, of course everyone was like, why would you go there? It's unsafe, blah
Hmm.
blah blah. So it really took a lot to like stick to my guns, and that was by far one of the best decisions of my life. I mean, why
Hmm.
I'm talking to you guys right now. But
Exactly.
um first time abroad, like I had been to Mexico, but
Nice.
Whoop,
I it
whoop.
was yeah, it was not proper. It was like a resort area that my cousins have a place there. So I had been
Whereabouts?
to Mexico and Canada. It was in Puerto Penasco, but I really want to go to Mexico City. So and like
You
different
have
parts
to.
of I want to go everywhere in Central and South America. But um, yeah, so I had traveled to Mexico and Toronto when I was younger, but it's all part of North America. So like it wasn't really experiencing different culture by myself.
Yeah.
The first time was actually to Italy for my when my sister got married to Alfonso, my brother-in-law, and he's from Naples, Italy.
Oh,
So
good.
yeah, so that was awesome. And actually, like my Spanish, I didn't know Italian, but my Spanish really helped at the wedding somewhat like loosely translate with his Italian family and my English speaking family. So that was really exciting, but my first time alone was actually in New Delhi, India.
Ah,
Um,
yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's kind of insane because my my classmate and good friend Katie, she was studying international development as well, but she was more in women's studies. And she was like, I found this NGO. I have this all like mapped out. She's incredible. She's very organized, and was like, "Do you want to come with me?" And I was like, "Sure." Like, not understanding financial planning, anything like that. I was just like, I thought, oh, I can't afford to study abroad, but I can afford to go work for free at an NGO halfway across the world. Like, it didn't make sense. But it was for 2 months, and it was the summer of 2015. So it was between my junior and my senior year. And that was a really big culture shock. And I still have friends from that NGO. It's called Swecha. So that was actually my first time working with a student who didn't speak any English. I didn't speak any Hindi. And I would just be on my computer, like looking up. I was helping him make his own jewelry making business, because one of their pillars was enterprise and another one was education. And they helped, and then the other was environment. They helped the locals make money for themselves, and one of the ways was collecting trash and making art out of it.
Nice.
So it was such a cool idea, but it was just so much at once. That's when I first
Like
started.
so niche, like the first time you went abroad alone to India and helping someone with a jewelry making business.
It was,
I love
it was
it.
bizarre. And it
And
was
what was
also
like, you said it was a big culture shock. So what was like the biggest thing that shocked you, or that was like different from, so you'd previously traveled more like in North America?
yeah, I mean, like, I had been to Italy before that too. So even, I mean, Europe, that was all with family though. So
And more Western.
definitely, yeah. The way, even just like being a female traveling, myself being blonde, my friend Katie's this redhead, like we were both like stuck out like sore thumbs, and that was a big difference. We technically lived in this like slum area that was right next to like a Hard Rock Cafe, mall, movie theater, that all of these people would be driven in from, like, a higher class. And everyone, like, there was like cows passing the street, people sleeping on the street. Like, it existed so close to one another. Like, that was an extreme that I've never seen before. But I then realized, of course, that's a lot of New Delhi. The air pollution was really bad. Hindi, with Spanish, I could make out Italian a bit more, whereas there was no help with that. It's funny because I came back, so I taught English in Santa Marta, officially started teaching English there, and then in Italy, and then I did it online for a bit, and then tried to do it in Malaga, Spain. And it's when the second round of COVID hit, and I was kind of like, it's not worth it, and came back after 3 months. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna like figure my stuff out and go back. Or I didn't know what I was gonna do because of COVID. And 3 years later, even more than that, I was still in Columbus. So it's been like a great place to grow a community. But I still had a lot of jobs like requiring me to travel and things like that. So
talk about, on that note, so you had this tint of teaching English in Italy, where their standard is teaching British English. And
yes.
You had some moments where you had some moments of confusion, like not understanding some new words or some differences. So let's talk about some classic differences. If any of my students are listening, they're going to love this, between British English and American English vocab. What's the first one that
Yes.
springs to mind, Hal?
Lorry. And truck.
Rose, do you know what she's saying? Oh, okay, yeah, she's confirmed it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. But what did you think a lorry was? Or had you just never heard that word before?
Never heard it.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. Lorry, yeah.
So lorry,
You have the
British
tongue
English,
twister.
truck. It's just always a truck in the States.
Yeah.
A truck.
Yes.
Right. Red lorry. Try this one, Holly.
Yeah.
Red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry, and repeat that as fast as you can.
Red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry.
Nailed it.
Red
That's what
lorry,
we
yellow.
grew up on. That's the kind of fun shit that we did when we were growing up.
What else?
Pants. Ones that get me
there's so many.
pants.
Pants and trousers.
Yeah. Pants.
Why are
That's
you saying
actually the next
pants?
one.
When
Pants.
you know, no, your pants, like that confuses a lot of people, doesn't it?
What do you
it's a
call
tricky one, that.
pants? Like knickers? What do you call them?
Are knickers like the shorter like shorts? Still don't know. I had to learn all
Your
of this stuff when
underwear.
I was teaching English, and then I was
Underwear. Underwear.
oh,
Panties.
underwear, panties. Yeah,
Oh,
Panties.
panties.
panties is an older. I feel like panties would be like that's like I don't know an older generation. But yeah, the typical ones like chips, crisps.
Right. So you call. Oh, it's just too confusing. So you call chips,
Right.
crisps are
Yes.
chips, and chips are fries, right?
Yes. Yes.
Pavement.
Sidewalk.
Sidewalk. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm winning.
Let's just
I'm
go
winning
back.
the
Let's just go
America
back
test.
and forth. We'll throw some words out, and we'll do the translation. Can you think of any others? Lollipop.
Purse.
What is it?
Lollipop.
Sucker?
Popsicle.
Hopsicle?
Did you say
No, because isn't a popsicle a frozen thing?
Popsicle is frozen. A lollipop is a sucker. We also call the candies lollipops or suckers.
candy?
Right. There's one candy. Yeah, you've just given.
Sweets.
Yeah. Rubber.
Tire.
Eraser.
Eraser.
No, rubber.
Like a
And
condom.
yeah, they say condom, right? They mean
Yeah,
condom.
but also we say rubber and they say eraser.
There's so many. They can mean multiple things. When I think
Purse.
rubber, I think of rubber tire. What's that?
Yeah, that's the material. Like a tire is made from rubber.
Yeah.
Purse, Rose said. Bag.
Bag. But
Is your
we'll still
handbag, right?
use purse, I'd say.
But
But
for
yeah, like
us,
grandma
purse is like where you put your money and your cards. And the handbag is the
Well,
bag.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
What do you call the
purse,
purse?
a wallet,
Wallet, yeah.
car park
Parking lot.
is parking lot.
Yeah. It's fun, isn't it? It's a fun little thing. I always used to do it with students, and I still will do it with students.
Yeah.
Just to like there's no I always say there's no right or wrong. There's no like, oh, you don't say it correctly or we're saying it's not like that.
Right. Well,
But it's a fun
the
little
only
thing.
when I was teaching the British English and it was the Cambridge school that they were taking these tests and I was like preparing them for these tests.
Yeah.
So I felt like responsible if I pronounce things in an American accent versus the British, and two, introduce them to vocabulary. They're already confused. And then I come in with the American vocabulary, you know? So I was like, I was at home studying most of the time. It was so interesting. Yeah, I'm such a casual like communicator too. I had such a hard time trying to be more formal in just the way that I taught English. Like I learned so much about English, especially British English, having to teach it. So, and that's why I loved even like when I found out you guys were doing this like podcast, like this is the stuff that I think more people need to listen to and get outside of their comfort.
Preach
There's
it,
so
Holly.
many
Preach it.
But can I just say,
But I
Harley's
love,
is such a Anglatina. Like everything, literally everything that we talk about has come up already in the conversation. You were
yeah,
just
yeah.
you are an
It was very
Anglatina.
like comforting to hear, to listen to it because you, I mean, just different parts of the States, you'll meet different like travelers and things like that, but it's not often you meet people who are like obsessed with, Latin America.
Mm,
I don't know. I feel like they're in different, definitely more in like Florida and the South,
mhm,
but or say like in California. But it's just like refreshing to hear that you're like not alone in like the very interesting like path we take of like just where our travels have brought us. And so that's why I love that part of that job, like feeling like I can connect with students on that level. But and that's like what I loved about teaching English. But the formality of it, sometimes I really have to like try hard to do that. But again, I think like every job you have, every experience, every place you visit has a purpose in like teaching you something. So yeah, even New Jersey.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true.
So, can I ask you a question, honey?
Yeah.
Are you an Anglatina? Firstly, are you clear on what we mean when we say that?
Um, like have
Yeah,
a
it's a
Latina
test.
soul.
Yeah. It's not a quiz. It's not a
Yes.
quiz. But yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
having like carrying that bit of like yeah, Latin soul, alma latina. I love that. That's really nice. Do
Yeah.
you have that? And why do you think it's important? You just said like it's important to talk to, or you wish more people listen to these conversations or whatever, but why? What do you think's key about it? What do you think's important about it? And for you personally, are you an Anglatina? And what about you makes you an Anglatina?
Are you willing
Um,
to wear the shirt? The
like
We will be
merchandise
sending
coming.
merchandise out. Yeah, you have to wear a hat.
Are you
this
ready
is
to be an
hilarious.
ambassador? It's not a
Um,
cult.
yeah. Well, it's funny because actually, okay, it's like, how do I summarize this?
Yeah.
Like I was talking about, when I love dancing and I always loved, especially in my art, I always loved like a lot of color. So those were like the first like, and I love practicing Spanish. So three
Mm,
things that kind of like drew me towards Colombia, and Shakira. But then I think I've always just loved, especially the, I would say the warmth physically, but also in the energy of the people. Like
yeah.
nothing compares to Latin Americans, I think. But again, I have only been to, well, Colombia and Brazil now, Ecuador, and technically Mexico, but again, not just a resort. Um, yeah, the things that I think about when I think about um, why I feel like I don't have any Latin background, but
It's not a
I've
requirement.
always, yeah.
Neither
Me
do
neither,
we.
babes. Look at me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Polish and Norwegian, so it's, but I've always had to ask myself this question because with my art, so when I was actually out in India for the second time doing the yoga teacher training, um, there's about 20 of us all from all over the world, and there was two Brazilians and one from Uruguay, and they just the way that like we when we would do like the dances every Friday and all that stuff, like I would just love to like dance with them or like even practice Spanish. It was just the way like I guess they conducted themselves. I like gravitated towards them a lot. And they were joking like, oh, because my name is Holly Ann, that instead it would be pretty like Hollyana as like my Latina name. So before
Mhm.
I made like a more professional business out of my art and I did it as a hobby, I was like, oh, I should name it like Haliana's Arte. And of course, I was like, is this appropriation? Am I like doing, is right? Like it's like a very touchy subject. You don't want to offend, but my friends who are Latina gave me
They
that
gave you the
name and
name. They
also like
baptized you.
they baptized me. No, and then as an artist too, like you can reinvent yourself and it's just this part of me that I've always connected with and I just like feel at home. Like even the last time I had gone to um you know South America was Colombia and then I went and visited Issy and it was like wild. Like I hadn't been there before but just a part of me came alive again and it's hard to
Yeah.
explain and put into words. So that's often why I like painting because I have a hard time with words. Which is ironic being a is that the right term? The right way to use ironic is I have a hard time with words,
Yes.
but I was an English teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, you
But
expressed it perfectly. You are an
yeah,
Anglatina.
I think you
You
did.
the
I got you.
explanation was perfect. But if Rose ever gets to see you dance, then she'll understand.
What do you dance salsa?
I love salsa. I grew up dancing hip hop and yeah, and like sometimes I would dance growing up like with the lights off at night. Like it's truly just something you had to like get out of. It was just a way to express myself, not
Yeah.
at all like a performance thing. And so it's interesting like having this love for dance and then going into like the competitive dance world in the States where it could be very, just about like yeah, how you look and there's a word for it I'm just blanking on. It wasn't about the feel of it. It was like a lot about stereotypes
Accolades.
and yeah.
Yeah.
So and then when I go to, Latin America and it's so much just about like feeling and yeah, it's the way that like I just feel like people are more it I'm like quicker to connect with people there in a way and
Mm,
feel like
yeah.
family quickly with them. Whereas I think a lot of other places we just like put up fronts because we think that's like being safe or, I think there's a way to be
Yeah.
smart but also find connection. Um, yeah.
You've hit the nail on the head, Holly. That's it's so beautifully said.
Yeah, I want to cry.
Oh, Izzy
And
and
when
I
you
love
said that,
crying.
when you said that, when you said that a little bit, I think you said that part of you kind
Comes
of
alive.
yeah comes alive. That was the term that you used when you visited Izzy. It's so
Mhm.
weird because as you were saying that, I was like, I know exactly what you mean. And right now that I'm not there, I haven't been over to that side of the world for a while. I feel like a little part of me is not dead, but let's say like dormant, like
Yeah,
there's a little
exactly.
section of me which is just not kind of in use at the moment, but I'm sure within however many hours of landing, getting off the plane, that it would exactly come alive again. It's strange, isn't
Yeah,
it? It is strange. And I think it is hard to explain, but I think you did a really good job of it. So thank you for that.
thanks. Yeah, and it's funny, I try like even having my Columbia, my bag, my purse. Um, People would recognize that and I like it always made me light up like even in Ohio or different parts of the world like if people recognize that bag which is like my baby I get to like strike up conversation about Colombia or about like their travels like it's so interesting like at first like I was saying even using the name Haliana like having a bit of shame of like, oh, but I don't really like that's not my blood. It's like, what? Like I don't know. It's every Latina that I've met has been so welcoming. Like it's not even a part of the culture to be like, how dare you? You know, like
Judgmental, yeah, no.
Yeah.
But I
when
think
it
that
comes from
that's,
us.
but I think that that's when people like, let me try and think of the right word. That like all of these things that you described, it is really true. And it's not just like anyone who comes here that connects to that part of it. So one of the things that you mentioned is like the physical warmth, and like we've talked
Mhm.
about this in other episodes. Like I'm really like that, and I've always been like that. So that's something that like I love about
Yeah,
being here, like I've always been like physically affectionate and like open and emotional and stuff. And all of the other things that you described as well. I think that people like recognize that in you, and then they want to adopt you. Like all of my
yeah,
friends say, like, no, you're Brazilian, like, because they
yeah,
feel like I have those things in common, obviously it's not everything, but like I don't know, some kind of essence that like that you connect with, and not everybody
yeah,
is like that. Like not everybody is like that here either, but you know what I mean? Like I don't think that
Yeah.
people would be like, oh, you're identifying with something that's not yours, because when you make that connection with someone, they like feel that from you as well. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, and I think like just thinking about like Rose asking you this question, and if you're an Anglatina, and I think Kayla really was like the original Anglatina, thinking about what all of that
Yeah,
means now. That's so nice to
yeah.
think about.
I know. And it's so funny too because I feel like we she was like someone I talked to so much about this when I first got to Colombia. And she was there, earlier than we I forget how long she was there for, maybe like a year or
I
so.
think a couple of years already. I think it was our third.
Yeah, and like yeah, it's just like having those talks with her was just like listening. It brought me that feeling of listening to the podcast, or like listening to this podcast was the same feeling of getting somewhere new and being like, am I all alone in this? And then having these conversations. Like it's just so comforting to know you're like not the only like wacko who thinks they're Latina, or who like loves these parts of these cultures. Like that is the
Yeah.
real beauty of getting
Yeah, who like
to
wants to leave, like wants to find something different. I think that's like the point in common, isn't it? So you were talking about when you came here, and we were talking about you came with a friend, Evan. Shout out Evan. I'm
yeah.
sure he's not listening, but maybe.
But you said that you've never been in the Latin American setting with one of your home friends before, and like you were, I don't know, concerned or worried about how that would be. But do you feel like you change, or do you feel like you're a different Holly when you're like out of the States and into like Latin American vibes? And if so, what changes about you? Or are you just
I
a better
mean,
version?
I think it's just a better version. Like as he said, like I'm just in my element, and I think I would come back and like tell them about it, and they could see that. Like I definitely try to bring back like just the colorfulness of
Yeah,
Latin America when I do come back, and try and paint it and like just communicate it in any way I can. But it's nothing like getting to be like I don't know. I felt like when Evan was there and I just got to be like sit back and be like, you see why I love it. And this was my first time to Brazil, but like it was, yeah, I feel like a better version of myself
hmm,
when, yeah, I'm just around like-minded people.
yeah,
um but yeah, I don't know, I think I would like to think like a lot of my hometown friends, like I think everyone has like a taste of that because I do share a lot like on social media and through my art. Like I'm pretty vulnerable about or honest about how much I love it and my experiences. But yeah, it doesn't compare to being there.
yeah, definitely. I agree wholeheartedly.
Are you gonna go back soon?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like it's always going to be a place. Obviously, is with Izzy living there. But even if she didn't live there, like it's going to be. And actually, hearing you talk about India and stuff, sometimes I have this worry that I will never go to other places because I'm like, if somebody gave me now like $5,000 and said you can travel to wherever you want to go, like I know immediately where I would go, you know, and it would only be that way. And I do want to travel Asia, and I do want to go to like Japan, Australia, and other places around the world and Africa. But sometimes I do genuinely fear that, given the choice, I will only ever choose Latin America. But I know I need to widen my perspective and my horizons there. But yeah, I will be
That's
going
like
back.
when we were talking about like, you know, being out of, you know, Latin America, and like it's like, okay, if you can't travel there, like how do you get back into it? And music is definitely the best. Like I made a playlist like when I was in a lot of Izzy's music. It's all your music, Izzy. I added to like
I
my
didn't
little
make
Brazil
it. I didn't compose it. I just made a playlist.
You didn't compose it, but I just looked
You're the
at her
curator.
playlist and I took it. But that one, like that always calms me down and like brings me to brings me to a great place.
It has been an absolute pleasure. I hadn't really had chance to think much about how it was going to be, but now I'm just quite, you know, intent on getting us together in real life.
Let's make that happen. I'd love to meet you in the flesh, Holly, and see those dance moves.
Yeah. It's so great too. I'm like, I don't know how obviously I've been listening to them, but don't know how the podcasts run or like how you structure them. But it's so funny because I know like talking about what we've been talking about, like I could go on forever and ever. And
exactly, yeah.
Do you feel like imposter syndrome, especially like traveling and then coming back and being like, oh yeah, represent the United States, and you're like, I get mixed up with what, you know, with what is my culture or like with what is my hometown culture versus America versus my personally, you know, like we all
Yeah, me and Rose talk about this on the podcast as well. Like we can only speak to our own experiences and our point of view of other people's experiences, right? So we're not like talking for all of England or all of the Brazilians or all of the Latino people, but just like what we've experienced through that. But yeah.
That's the disclaimer.
Yeah, well, maybe we're going to tap into the American market. Maybe we're going to break America with this episode. If you're listening to this and you're American, comment. So thank you, everybody. You've been listening to
Anglatinas.
Bye. Smashed it.